Sometimes your muscles got to warm up a little bit before it really works exactly right. My dad owned a construction company. He started in 1984, so I worked for him. And you know, there a couple years before I got hurt, we were working 7/12s, and literally it was just the same old American home. You know, you went to work, you got up, went to work. So on March 1st, 2008, I went on a quick four-wheeler ride around my grandfather's farm. This was an old dirt gravel road, and as I was on my four-wheeler ride, it was going to be 5 minutes right behind my house. I hit a down power line. I took 7,200 volts of electricity, and it was enough electricity that it stopped my heart for 30 seconds. That pole right there, I think, was leaning this way. When that pole was leaning this way, these lines were 30 inches off the ground, swooping, and the lowest point was right here in the middle. I immediately jumped up because I felt like I was on fire. And I was trying to climb down in the ditch to cool off, and then the next thing that I remember seeing is the ambulance. I mean, it kind of seemed like it went fast, but it was kind of slow too. Immediately, once the helicopter got there, I was loaded onto the helicopter and I was taken to the Vanderbilt burn unit. So while I was completely sober with no pain medicine, I went through the hydro room. And hydro is where they actually take a pressure washer and they wash your dead skin off of you, because when you get electrocuted, it burns you from the inside out. My whole right arm was skin graft. For 3 days I'd been asleep. I went through multiple amputations every day so that they could try to save as long as they could on the length of my arms, but they had to get the infection out too. So my mom and dad walked in the room, and I remember looking up at my dad and asking him, you know, like, how bad is it? And he told me, he said the first thing he told me was, you know, Jason, we're gonna get through this. You know, we've always had faith. We've always had God in our life, and we don't know how your life's gonna change, but it's definitely gonna change. So I remember asking Dr. Guy, like, what do I have to do to get out of the hospital? What's got to happen? And he gave me a whole list of stuff. So 12 days after my accident, total, from the day I got hurt, through the comas, waking up, holding my kids, the 12th day, Dr. Guy came in my room and he sat down with me for a minute. He said, Jason, I got some news for you. I never would imagine that I'd ever be telling you this, but he said, I'm going to let you go home today. And I remember getting in a wheelchair and him rolling me around the hallway, and there was like an L shape. And when I come around that second right-hand turn, every nurse and every doctor was on both sides of the hallway clapping and hugging me. And, you know, it was like all the nurses even told me we've never seen nothing like this before, you know. And it was just that I had an attitude of moving forward, and like I said, I was ready for a challenge, and you got to have faith. I mean, there's no way you can do it without faith. So the day I got home, 12 days after my accident, that's when the challenges started for me.
Just things that were so simple to before, and then that after that day, just getting everybody ready in the car. Things that you would take for granted.
But then, like I said, challenges kept on happening, and one of my biggest hobbies before I got hurt was hunting. I remember my buddy calling me and saying, hey Jason, you wanna go turkey hunting? And I thought in the back of my mind, you know, I would probably figure it out one way or another, but not that I wasn't ready, I just didn't know it would happen that fast. And I'll never forget looking to my left, you had a couple hens walking towards me, and then here come this gobbler. And I followed him just for a minute, and he stopped. I told Sam, I'm fixing to stop him, and he stopped him. And whenever he did, I shot, and that was the first turkey I killed after my accident. My wife had done a lot of research on prosthetics while I was in the hospital, and she found out about these bionic hands that were out from Touch Bionics, and they were just basically the iLimb hand. It was the very first hand out that had multi-moving fingers. And, you know, I asked my prosthetist, I said, man, I'd like to get those Touch Bionic hands. And I remember him telling me, he's like, man, that's probably not gonna happen because they're so expensive, insurance might not say yes. So I remember us writing a lot of letters and talking to the insurance company and telling them that my #1 goal was me being a dad again. I wanted to be a dad. That was my biggest goal from day one. My prosthetist called me one day and he said, hey Jason, can I come to your house? And he was in Nashville, Tennessee. And I said, sure. And he drove from Nashville to Owensboro. And when he walked in this door, he had 2 briefcases. And he sat down on this couch and he opened those briefcases up. And whenever he did, there was a pair of iLim touch bionic hands sitting in there. And he told me, he said, your insurance said yes. At the time, I didn't know how big of a deal that was. And then I found out that I became the first person in the world with 2 bionic hands. There was people that had 1, but I was the first in the world with 2 of them. And immediately, you know, again, you go back to that first day that I said I wanted to accept these challenges, and I immediately put them on and started doing stuff with them. I worked every single day. Sometimes people see my story now and they think it was like an overnight thing or overnight success, and it definitely wasn't. Every single day I got up and I tried something different. Whether it was threw something on the floor just to see if I could pick it up, to wanting to drink something just to see if I could drink it. You know, it was absolutely everything I could possibly do. And one thing about me, my dad was a drill sergeant in the Army, and there was never such a thing of giving up. I was never allowed to give up. Once you start something, you got to go with it. You can't give up. I started getting all this media attention in Owensboro and doing a couple public speaking gigs at the local schools, no big deal. And then all of a sudden I got a phone call from CNN.
But first I want to introduce you to the world's first recipient of these hands. He's a young father who lost the use of both of his hands after being electrocuted.
And then from there I got a phone call about doing a TV show for Hawaii Five-0. So I went and did an episode of Hawaii Five-0, Hookman episode. Became really good friends with RoboCop from the 80s, Peter Weller. One of the hands that come out with the Revolution had an Apple app for it. So Apple found out about that. I did a Super Bowl commercial for the Apple 3 years ago, I think it was. And then it went into Touch Bionics finding out about me and having the first set of hands and how well I was using them on TV. So they called me from Scotland and asked me if I would be an ambassador for Touch Bionics. And I've been an ambassador ever since. After I met Peter Weller, I had him come in town, and I wanted to put together on March 1st, on the anniversary of my accident, I wanted to put together this little party, and I wanted people to meet RoboCop. I wanted to bring him to Owensboro, and I did, and I charged $10 a person to get in. That next day, Peter Weller and I counted $18,000 that I raised that night, and I gave $18,000 to 7 different local charities. My whole message is to give hope. If I would have gave up that day, I wouldn't be here today, you know? And my kids wouldn't have a dad, and my wife wouldn't have a husband.
I feel like that's true, like with everything that they've done in life and everything they're gonna do. The older they get and the more they learn and realize they don't know any different. They've only known him to be able to do everything that he can do. Just from the stories and us talking about it and then watching him, they see that he never gives up and that he perseveres. And I feel like that is a lesson for them, that they see that and they can take that with them. And
you know, I talk about my girls because they were there whenever it all happened. But now I got a little boy that's 5 years old, and obviously he wouldn't be around if it wasn't for me not giving up.
When I race, I only try, finish, a race, not give up.
My wife Jenny probably did more than I ever did. She was probably a bigger hero than I was. She just didn't get the recognition I get because she still got her hands, and that's the only thing that's changed on me is I don't have my hands.